You ever get the feeling that one split-second decision, one wild, impossible choice made with your gut in the dead of night can end up unraveling someone else's entire life, maybe even your own? I sure as hell do. That's how it all started for me. 3 minutes to midnight out in the teeth of a Colorado blizzard with nothing but my snowmobile's headlights slicing the darkness and a buddy's voice shaky with fear begging for help through a dying phone battery. My name's Connor Quincy. If you'd told me a year ago that firing up my Arctic cat to save a friend would land me in the nastiest legal mess of my life, well, I'd have laughed you off my porch. But that's exactly what happened on February 14th, 2025. In a place called Evergreen Ridge, a pristine mountain community, or so the brochures promised. Guess they forgot to mention the part about the HOA being run like a private army. I'd moved in 6 months before. 3-bed ranch on the edge of the neighborhood where the manicured lawns finally gave up and let the pine forest take over. It was perfect, especially for a guy like me who makes a living teaching wilderness survival, running search and rescue, the whole 9 yards. I could step out my back door and lose myself in the backcountry in under a minute. What I hadn't figured on, nobody really does until it's too late, was how tight the HOA kept its grip on every dumb detail. Paint color, lawn height, whether your mailbox leans a little left or right. I skimmed the rules when I moved in, who doesn't, but I sure didn't pay much mind to the bit about no recreational vehicles between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. Mistake number 1. It was a Friday night. I was winding down, already picturing my pillow, when my phone buzzed in my pocket. Jake's name lit up the screen. Now, Jake never calls late unless something's sideways. The first thing I heard wasn't even his voice, it was the wind howling. "Connor, I need help. Bad. I'm lost up by Cascade Falls. Ankles jacked up, phone's almost dead. I can't feel my toes." He tried to sound calm, but you can't fake that kind of panic. I snapped into rescue mode without thinking. "Where are you?" "Somewhere by a big rock, wind's brutal." He pinged me his last GPS coordinates, God bless modern tech, and I stared at the map. 8 miles deep in the woods. Hiking would take hours. He didn't have hours. The only way was the snowmobile. My brain did the math. Cold like this, hypothermia could set in fast. So I geared up. Avalanche beacon rescue pack headlamp, heavy winter gear routine for me. What wasn't routine? Glancing at my watch and seeing it click over to 12:07 a.m. Well past quiet hours. But Jake was out there freezing. I fired up the engine thunder in the stillness and shot down my driveway, didn't even see the bedroom light snap on 3 doors down. That was Patricia Henderson, 53, HOA president, professional busybody. She ran Evergreen Ridge like her own little kingdom. She'd scolded me over trash cans and left me nasty notes about my porch flag, real iron fist in a cashmere sweater stuff. I'd kept my head down, figured if I didn't poke the bear wouldn't bite. But that night rules didn't matter. Not when someone's life was on the line. Trail wound through the pines, snow falling so heavy I could barely see 10 feet. My phone buzzed, unknown number. I ignored it. Jake came first. 40 minutes later, I spotted him huddled against a rock lips blue, shivering so bad his teeth rattled. I wrapped him in a thermal blanket, stuffed hand warmers into his boots, did the whole rescue routine, got him on the snowmobile. He groaned about the pain, but I told him it was ride or freeze. He laughed, weak but alive. Back home, I got him to the hospital, hypothermia, sprained ankle, overnight stay. He made it. I felt like a hero. Figured I'd sleep for 12 hours. Instead, I woke up to a formal violation notice taped to my front door. $500 fine for running the snowmobile at night, disturbing the peace. Disciplinary hearing scheduled courtesy of Patricia. My reward for saving a life, a bureaucratic smackdown. Turns out Patricia hadn't stopped at a letter. She'd called the cops too. Claimed there was a criminal disturbance, midnight snowmobile ride endangering public safety. Sheriff's department sent a patrol, but by then I was deep in the woods. The officer Rodriguez, he'd dealt with Patricia before, knew her type. He did the paperwork, shrugged, moved on. But Patricia didn't. She hounded the sheriff, the county, the DA, anyone who'd listen. 3 days later, Officer Rodriguez showed up at my door. He was apologetic, wanted my side. I gave it to him straight, showed him Jake's texts, GPS hospital forms. He shook his head, said there'd be no criminal charges but the HOA. That was another beast. I finally sat down and read the HOA rules. Deep in the fine print section, 23.2 was an exception for emergencies. My case nailed shut. I walked into that hearing with documentation up to my eyeballs and Jake limping but very much alive. Patricia tried to spin it. You didn't notify the HOA. You disturbed the peace. I said, you want me to file a form while my friend's freezing to death? The audience actually clapped. Some board members saw a reason motion to dismiss the charges and Patricia had to eat it. But her eyes said, this isn't over. And it wasn't. Next week, suddenly my front door's the wrong shade of green. Porch light's too modern. Mailbox post has a crack. Pure retaliation. I marched down to Patricia's house, asked her straight up. She just smiled that smile polite as a snake. So I took photos every violation in the neighborhood. Turns out a dozen houses had the same problems. Sent the evidence to the board. Patricia responded her self-inspections for everyone else, but only my house got the fines. Time to lawyer up. Margaret Reeves, HOA lawyer extraordinaire, listened to my story. Nodded. You've got a case for harassment, but court's expensive. Try to work it internally, build support. Vote her out if you can. So I did met with Bernard, the treasurer. Turns out Patricia had made enemies everywhere. One couple moved out over a window that was 2 inches too wide. A therapy dog banned. A garden ripped up for unapproved landscaping. By March, we had a challenger, Helen Cross, civil engineer, all common sense. She and I rallied the neighborhood. We weren't asking for chaos, just fairness. Patricia, of course, fired back. Letters warning of rogue elements trying to ruin Evergreen Ridge. Accused us of plotting anarchy, purple houses, junk cars, the works. All nonsense. Then mid-April, Bernard called. Emergency board meeting, community center now. When I showed up, sheriff's cars were outside. Turns out Patricia had been embezzling from the HOA for years, over $300,000. Fake invoices, shell companies, luxury lifestyle, all on our dime. When confronted, she finally broke down and confessed. The deputies walked her out in cuffs, neighbors staring in shock. In the months after Evergreen Ridge rebuilt itself, Helen took over as HOA president, pushed through reforms, term limits, audits, grievance process. Got rid of the pettiest rules. For the first time, people could breathe. We had block parties, emergency drills, real neighborhood spirit. Jake made a full recovery and never let anyone forget that my illegal snowmobile run saved not just him, but the whole neighborhood. Later, Helen dropped by one evening, handed me a beer and said, "You started this. If you hadn't stood up, we'd still be living under Patricia." I said I just wanted to save a friend. But sometimes that's all it takes. One act of defiance against nonsense and you get a ripple that changes everything. I took a seat on the new HOA board, put my energy into emergency preparedness training, neighbors, building supply caches, running drills. When a wildfire threatened, we got everyone out safely, pets and all. Nobody left behind. That's what community's supposed to mean. We put up a plaque at the community center, not to gloat, but to remind ourselves, justice and compassion must balance order and rules. Laws serve humanity, not the other way around. I think about that a lot. Rules matter, but only if they're fair. Only if they make us better neighbors, not bitter enemies. Patricia went to prison. The last I heard, she was working in the library, taking classes, maybe trying to change. Maybe not. Doesn't matter much now. Her house got bought by a family with 2 kids and a golden retriever. They painted the door bright red, hung up Christmas lights that would have sent Patricia into orbit. Place looks happy for the first time. Funny thing is, Jake and I still ride out to that spot in the woods once a year just to stand there looking at the mountains. He says if I hadn't gotten lost, Patricia would still be running the place. I tell him life's weird. Sometimes screwing up is the start of something good. He laughs, but it's true. If you take one thing from this mess, let it be this. Stand up for what's right, even when it's hard. Don't let petty rules trump decency. And when the chips are down, help your neighbor even if it costs you. Because that's how you build a place worth calling home. So let me ask you, what would you have done standing in my boots? Is it ever right to break the rules for the sake of someone's life? Or should we all just keep our heads down and follow orders no matter what? I want to hear your stories, times you stood up, times you paid the price, times you learned the hard way, what community really means. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's see where you stand.